In the heart of a stormy battlefield, Dylan E.T. stood alone, his twin swords, Tempo and Rhythm, gleaming under the flashes of lightning. Before him, a mob of elemental golems lumbered forward, each embodying the raw power of nature, earth, fire, water, and air. Click 1. With a resonating thud, Dylan E.T. banged his chest, and the sword pommels of Tempo and Rhythm bound to the A-3 DGRs on his chest. The air around him crackled with energy, his scar tattoo glowing faintly as the conundrum of authority awakened within him. The golems roared, shaking the ground with their elemental might. Click 2. Dylan E.T. surged forward, his movements a blur of precise footwork and deadly grace. The sword grips of Tempo and Rhythm advanced towards their targets, each swing and thrust perfectly timed. Against an earth golem, Tempo's blade shimmered with a blue aura, cleaving through rock with an S-stock advance. Rhythm, with a green hue, spun in a coupe, slicing through a water golem's liquid form, sending droplets flying like scattered gems. The fire golem erupted in a blaze, attempting to engulf Dylan in flames. But with a swift click 2, he stepped forward, Tempo slicing through the inferno with the counterclockwise twist of an orange 8 counter, dispersing the flames and striking at the core of the golem. Rhythm, in the meantime, met the air golem's swirling winds with a clockwise green 9 coupe, slicing through the currents and dispersing the entity. Click 3. With a swift motion, Dylan E.T. retracted the sword grips back into position. Tempo and Rhythm returned to their stances, ready for the next assault. The golems, momentarily stunned by his onslaught, regrouped, their elemental forms reconstituting. But Dylan was relentless. The A-3 DGRs pulsed with power, amplifying his already formidable abilities. Click 1. He rebound the sword pommels to his A-3 DGRs, the energy coursing through his veins, aligning his will with the rhythm of battle. Click 2. This time, he used Tempo's blade in a celestial blue 3 shift, advancing with blinding speed. The blade's energy created a wake of shimmering blue, cutting through an earth golem's granite armor with ease. Rhythm, in tandem, shifted into a red 2 retreat, slicing at the fire golem from a distance, its blade absorbing and extinguishing the flames. Click 3. The sword grips returned to position, the elemental golems visibly weakening. Dylan E.T.'s mastery of the 3 DGRs and his sword's unique properties allowed him to adapt to each element's strengths and weaknesses. With every click 1, click 2, and click 3, he danced through the battlefield, a whirlwind of precision and power. As the last golem fell, shattered and defeated, Dylan E.T. stood victorious amidst the remnants of elemental chaos. His swords, still shimmering with the residual energy of the battle, returned to his sides. The storm above cleared, revealing a sky brightened by the first light of dawn. Dylan E.T. had not only bested the golems but had done so with a display of unparalleled skill and mastery over his weapons and the mysterious A-3 DGRs. He sheathed his swords, the battlefield now silent, save for the gentle breeze that carried away the last whispers of the defeated elements. Dylan E.T., the warrior of the 3 DGR, had triumphed once more, his legend growing with each victory. In the midst of a vast desert landscape, Dylan E.T. stood, surrounded by a horde of giant ants, their chitinous exoskeletons gleaming ominously under the harsh sun. These monstrous insects towered over him, mandibles snapping hungrily, eager to tear into his flesh. Dylan, undeterred, prepared for the battle ahead, his eyes sharp with focus, the scar tattoo across his right eye a testament to his past battles. Click 1, sword pommel binds A3DGR. With a thunderous bang to his chest, Dylan ET activated his A3DGRs, the interlocking 3D golden rhombus units shimmering as they bound with the pommels of his swords, tempo and rhythm. The swords, glowing with a fierce energy, seemed almost alive, resonating with Dylan's intense focus. As the A3DGRs synced with the swords, Dylan felt the power coursing through him, a surge of energy that heightened his senses and sharpened his reflexes. Click 2, sword grip approaches target. With a swift, calculated movement, Dylan launched into action. He charged at the nearest giant ant, tempo and rhythm cutting through the air with a mesmerizing precision. The A3DGRs guided his every strike, their number side color determining the sword's behavior. The blades danced in Dylan's hands, each movement a masterpiece of martial prowess. The first ant lunged at him, mandibles wide. Dylan sidestepped, the A3DGRs pulsing with a vibrant blue 3 as he executed an S-stock maneuver, advancing with blinding speed. Tempo's blade sliced through the air, cleaving the ant's head cleanly from its body. Dylan's movements were fluid, his footwork an intricate dance that carried him effortlessly through the swarm. Click 3, sword grip returns to position. As another ant approached, Dylan's grip on rhythm tightened. With a graceful twirl, he pivoted on his heel, the A3DGR's glowing red too as he executed a draw maneuver. The celestial red shifting allowed him to retreat just out of the ant's reach, rhythm slicing across the creature's thorax with lethal precision. As Dylan completed the arc, rhythm returned smoothly to its starting position, ready for the next attack. The battle continued, a symphony of clicks and flashes. Dylan ET was a whirlwind of steel and fury, his sword's tempo and rhythm moving with a life of their own. The A3DGRs, binding to the pommels, enhanced his strikes, allowing him to counter the ant's movements with uncanny accuracy. An ant lunged at him from the left, and with a quick counter, Dylan's A3DGRs activated Orange 8. He twisted his body, tempo rotating counterclockwise, cutting through the ant's leg joints with ease. Despite the overwhelming numbers, Dylan showed no signs of fatigue. The A3DGRs, with their graphene bonds and aerogel electrolyte, absorbed the shock of each impact, protecting Dylan from the concussive force of the ant's powerful strikes. He moved like a blur, his swords a cascade of gleaming arcs that left destruction in their wake. Click 1, click 2, click 3. The cycle of combat continued, a relentless dance of offense and defense. Dylan's mastery over his blades and the A3DGRs made him an unstoppable force. The giant ants, once a menacing swarm, now lay in heaps around him, their exoskeletons shattered, their bodies still. Dylan stood amidst the carnage, his breath steady, his eyes cold and calculating. The desert air was thick with the scent of battle, the ground littered with the remnants of his foes. As the last ant fell, Dylan ET lowered his swords, the A3DGRs gradually dimming as they released their grip on the pommels. The energy that had surged through him began to wane, leaving him with a deep sense of satisfaction. He had faced the monstrous swarm and emerged victorious, his skill and the power of the A3DGRs proving too much for the giant ants to overcome. With a final, triumphant glance around the battlefield, Dylan ET sheathed tempo and rhythm. The desert was quiet once more, the only sound the faint hum of the wind. He turned and walked away, leaving behind a field of fallen giants, a testament to his prowess and the unbreakable bond between him and his swords. In a sprawling cavern, dimly lit by flickering torchlight and the occasional glint of gold, Dylan ET faced an overwhelming mob of minotaurs. Each creature, a towering behemoth of muscle and rage, clutched brutal axes and clubs, their eyes blazing with a savage hunger. The air was thick with the stench of sweat and the sound of heavy breaths, the anticipation of battle palpable. Click 1, sword pommel binds A3DGR. As Dylan ET steadied himself, the air seemed to hum with a silent energy. His hand gripped the pommels of his twin blades, tempo and rhythm, each bound to the A3DGRs on his chest, representing the epitome of precision and synchronization. The pommels shimmered with a faint glow, resonating with the number side colors that would dictate the rhythm of the ensuing combat. A slight tilt of his head and a deep breath was all it took. He was ready. Click 2, sword grip approaches target. In an explosive burst of speed, Dylan ET launched forward. Tempo in his left hand swung into a counterclockwise arc, a dance of silver steel aiming to disarm the nearest Minotaur. The blade hummed with the counter force of Orange 8, shifting effortlessly as it deflected an incoming axe. Dylan twisted, rhythm in his right hand following with a clockwise coup, a sharp slice that capitalized on the beast's momentary imbalance. Green 9's energy surged through the blade, enhancing its precision and force, slicing through thick hide with effortless grace. The Minotaurs roared in fury, charging in unison. Dylan ET advanced with celestial agility, his blades a blur of motion. Blue 3 guided his every step, the advance sharp and unyielding. Each step was a calculated move, each swing of tempo and rhythm a masterful strike. He weaved through the onslaught, the blade's celestial blue shifting allowing him to cut through the air with unparalleled speed, meeting each attack with a counter of his own. Click 3, sword grip returns to position. As the frenzied mob pressed on, Dylan ET executed a swift retreat. Red 2, the draw, activated as he shifted back, his steps as light as a feather. Rhythm's blade whirled in a defensive arc, deflecting a heavy club while tempo, following the motion, seamlessly retracted to a defensive stance. The blades returned to their starting positions, ready for the next movement, their actions governed by the subtle dance of the sword pommel's number side colors. With each cycle of click 1, click 2, and click 3, Dylan ET became a whirlwind of death and precision. The Minotaurs, despite their size and strength, found themselves unable to breach his defenses or match his speed. He was a maestro, orchestrating a deadly symphony with tempo and rhythm, the blades cutting through the ranks with lethal efficiency. Each strike, parry, and riposte was a testament to his mastery, a blur of metal and motion that left the Minotaurs staggering. As the battle raged on, Dylan ET remained a figure of calm amidst the storm, his eyes focused, his movements calculated. The A3DGRs pulsed with power, guiding his every action with a precision that bordered on the divine. In the end, as the last Minotaur fell, the cavern fell silent save for the heavy breathing of the warrior and the fading echoes of steel. Dylan ET stood tall, unscathed, his blades at his sides, their pommels glimmering in the dim light, a warrior unchallenged, a victor in the arena of beasts. Dylan ET stood tall and resolute, clad in his Aware 3DGR armor, which shimmered with a golden hue. His mirrored blades, tempo and rhythm, hung at his sides, their pommels bound to the A3DGRs on his chest. As he faced the mob of elemental golems, each representing the primal forces of nature, earth, water, fire, and air, his eyes burned with determination. He banged his chest like a gorilla, the resonance of the action signaling the activation of his gear. The mob surged forward, an unstoppable tide of raw elemental fury, ready to crush anything in their path. Click 1, in an instant, the sword pommels of tempo and rhythm bound to the A3DGRs, channeling Dylan's will through the weapons. A fierce gust of wind heralded the arrival of the first golem, an immense creature of swirling air. Dylan met its charge with a calculated step, the A3DGRs glowing as they coordinated his movements with the precise adjustments of his swords. Click 2, with a swift, fluid motion, Dylan advanced on the air golem. Tempo and rhythm gleamed, their edges aligning according to the number side color directives, Orange 8 for counter, Green 9 for coup, Blue 3 for estoc, and Red 2 for draw. He unleashed a series of coup strikes, his blades slicing through the air in a clockwise arc. The golem, though intangible, felt the force of his attacks, the energy of the 3DGRs disrupting its form. Another golem, this one of molten rock and lava, surged forward. The heat was intense, but Dylan remained unfazed. He shifted his stance, the blade's orientation switching to orange 8. Tempo moved in a counterclockwise slash, redirecting a torrent of magma aimed at him. Rhythm followed suit, the blades working in perfect harmony as they cleaved through the golem's fiery form. Click 3. As the molten golem crumbled, Dylan's sword grips retracted back to position, the A3DGRs guiding them with precision. He spun on his heel, facing the next wave, a towering mass of water and a rugged stone behemoth. With a roar, he leapt into the fray, his blades flashing with the light of the A3DGRs. The water golem attempted to engulf him, but Dylan's movements were too swift. He danced through its attacks, tempo and rhythm carving through the liquid mass with S-stock thrusts, each strike precise and powerful. The stone golem lumbered forward, each step shaking the ground. Dylan felt the weight of its presence, but he did not waver. He channeled his energy into the A3DGRs, the scar tattoo over his right eye a reminder of the authority he accepted and wielded. With a mighty swing, Tempo shattered a boulder-sized fist aimed at him. Rhythm followed with a powerful draw cut, severing a leg of the behemoth. Click 1, click 2, click 3, the battlefield became a symphony of destruction and precision, each movement a calculated response to the elemental onslaught. Dylan's sword pommels and grips acted in unison with the A3DGRs, each click marking a new phase in the combat. The air crackled with energy as he switched between defensive counters, offensive coups, and strategic retreats. His blades danced, a blur of motion that left the golems reeling and disoriented. The final golem, a manifestation of pure energy and light, loomed before Dylan, its form shifting and crackling with power. Dylan stood firm, his swords raised. With a final, resounding click 1, he bound the sword pommels with renewed intensity. Click 2 saw him advance, tempo and rhythm held high, their edges gleaming with the combined light of all the elements. The golem lashed out with tendrils of energy, but Dylan was ready. He moved with unparalleled grace and speed, the A3DGRs amplifying his every action. His blades cut through the air, each strike guided by the number side colors. The golem's attacks were deflected, its energy absorbed and redirected by the interlocking 3D golden rhombus units of his armor. With a final, decisive click 3, Dylan delivered a finishing blow, the combined power of tempo and rhythm shattering the golem's core. As the last of the elemental adversaries fell, Dylan ET stood victorious. His chest heaved with exertion, but his eyes remained fierce and unyielding. The battlefield was littered with the remnants of the golems, each one a testament to his skill and the power of the A3DGRs. He sheathed his swords, the echoes of the battle fading into silence. Dylan ET had proven once again that, whether facing the raw fury of the elements or the deepest conundrums of authority, he was a force to be reckoned with, unmatched and indomitable.